Well, the last video I did was talking about trying to get home over a Thanksgiving holiday when I was in college and having to deal with a snowstorm and how things ended up for the best, luckily, during that entire snowstorm, leaving college to get home. Today, I'm going to talk about something similar of getting caught in a snowstorm, but this time I wasn't heading home. I was trying to get back to the dorm. And this is just another one of those tales where this kind of thing doesn't happen everywhere in the country, but it happens because we have lake effect snow. So that's just how that is. So here's the deal. This was 1978, and there was a movie that was coming out that I wanted to see. And I couldn't get anyone else to go with me, so for the first time, and probably the next to last time, because I think I only did it twice in 4 years, I decided I was going to go to the theater by myself into the village of Oswego, New York. So I catch the bus at the, on the campus, and I take the bus into the village. And I go to the theater, and I look up, and I don't see the movie that I'm going to see listed. So I go inside, and I say, hey, such and such movie. I don't see that here. And the person there, and I can't remember whether it was a male or female, says, we're not showing that movie. I said, but I saw it listed. And he said, no, it's going to be shown at the other theater. And I said, there's another theater in Oswego? He says, yes, on the other side of Oswego, on the other side of Bridge Street. I didn't know. I never paid attention to the fact that there was a second side of Oswego. When the bus actually comes in, you have a certain, street that you can catch, and you can go either right or left, but we'd always gone left. The buses had always gone left because that's where the university was. When you had visitors, they would come out. So you didn't go to the other side all that often, and it wasn't until after this particular thing happened that I realized that there were other clubs and bars in Oswego that were on the other side, and it was mainly people who lived in the area who went to those things, except for the disco, which I kept hearing about this disco, but I never found it because it was on the other side. So I say to the guy, well, is there a way for me to get to the other side? And he says, oh yeah, there's a bus, and you can catch the bus at a certain, place. It's right outside, and that should get you there. So I go outside and I wait, and the bus comes. And luckily, I had enough money to get down there. I had enough money to go to the movie. So I catch the bus. And it was interesting to me because, like I said, I never knew there was that side. So the bus is taking me to the other side of Oswego. And I'm seeing a few businesses that I didn't know existed, a few restaurants I didn't know existed, a few fast food places I didn't know existed. And I finally get to the theater. So I go in and I pay my money and I sit down and I wait for the movie to begin. What I didn't know, because most of us didn't check that kind of thing, is that there was a storm front coming in. It was a blizzard. And they were saying it was going to be between 20 and 24 inches by midnight. Think about that. It's about close to 7 or 7:30 that I'm catching this, movie, and we've got a blizzard coming, and I don't know about it. And the thing is that it wasn't super cold at the time. There had been no wind. I'm wearing sneakers. I'm not wearing a parka, wearing a sweat jacket, because I just assumed I would get out and get on the bus. So I go in, I watch the movie, I come out, there's snow everywhere. And let's just say that it was up to my ankles at that point. But it was coming down really hard. And I go back in and I say, hey, when is the bus coming to take people back to the other side? And the guy says, no, the bus ends at 9. So there is no bus. And at that time, I knew nothing about taxis. I'd never been in a taxi. When you live in northern Maine on a military bus, there's no taxis. When I was living in the ghetto in Kansas City, there's no taxis. So I didn't know anything about taxis. So I had no idea how I was going to get back to the dorm. Most people in the dorm didn't have a phone. I had a phone in my room, but nobody there had a car. So I was kind of stuck. So I only have basically one choice, which is to start walking and trying to see if I can make it back. And that's all I could do. Like I said, I'm wearing sneakers. I don't have a parka because I wasn't expecting to have to deal with snow. And it was miserable. And it kept getting higher and higher. And the winds were blowing really hard. And I'm freezing and I'm wet. I've got nowhere I can stop. You know, I couldn't lean into... these days you have a place where if you have a bus stop, most of the time you'll have some kind of glass enclosure where you can, stand in there to wait so people don't get wet. Back in the 70s, they didn't care if you got wet or so you didn't have any of that kind of thing. And I just had to keep walking, and the snow kept getting higher, and the winds were getting stronger. And it took me almost 3 hours to walk all the way back to the university. Now, on a regular day, that would have been probably a 45-minute to an hour walk. That's still not a good walk, but in this particular instance, I was stuck. There was nowhere I could, protect myself. I had to keep walking, and I was 19 years old, and it was miserable. And there's nothing you can do, just keep walking, and I kept walking, and the snow got higher. And by the time I finally reached the campus, and I still had a little ways to go, the snow was up to my thighs. I'm still blasting through it. They're not sending out a plow to do anything with the roads because they know how much snow it's going to be. They pretty much assumed in the town of Oswego that no one's going anywhere. And, it was just miserable. That, that's kind of my life. That kind of thing happens here, by the way, but you usually don't have to worry about the buses or anything else. You always used to know what the weather was going to be like here in the Syracuse area. I just had no idea that was going to happen in Oswego. I learned my lesson, but I finally made it back, and all I could do was basically take everything off once I got to my room and crawl under the covers and go to sleep. And I was exhausted because I've always had a problem with sleeping, but on that particular night I fell asleep well, and I had a story to tell the next day. And I had 2 roommates, and they were wondering where I was because I hadn't told them I was going to the movies. I hadn't told anybody. You learn those lessons, and I hope people learn those lessons these days, where if you're going to a place that people aren't used to you going to on your own, that you at least tell people what you're doing. But that's just how life was back in the 70s. And I've had some other adventures since then, but I haven't had anything like that. So anyway, another snow story. I think I'm probably going to be done with the snow stories for a while. I mean, I could talk about the snowstorm that we had 2 weeks ago, where I got caught in 10 to 12 inches, but I was in the car and I was driving because that's my job. That was miserable. I could talk about the major rainstorm that we had with gusts of winds up to 60 miles an hour that I was trying to deliver pharmaceuticals to people. And it was raining and then stopping and then raining and then stopping. This is just Central New York. This is what we deal with. Anyway, I'm done. My name's Mitch Mitchell. I hope you all have a wonderful day.